Okay, let's start with the money. No intro, no outro, just real talk. Bonny Rebecca posted a whole sob story on Instagram text format. And you know, her insincerity in dealing with all these issues is shown first and foremost by what she says about the money. She didn't have to say anything about the money. I didn't make this about the money. You made this about the money, sweetheart. Everybody can see at a glance at your channel. You normally, if you're lucky, get 40,000 views or 50,000 views on a video. Your video announcing your bold and immoral decision to give up veganism and go back to eating meat, it's going to get 1 million views. I predict it is already well over 800,000 views. And you've got a mind to come out and tell us all it's not about the money. And you claim people don't realize just how little money you make as a YouTuber. I love the way this kind of obfuscation and mystification carries on as if it would take more than one mouse click for you to know exactly how much money you are making out of YouTube. As if it would require any skill whatsoever for you to take a screenshot of the Google Analytics report saying exactly how much money you make and to post that on your blog, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, wherever you want to post it, okay? And this is not just about Bonny Rebecca. It really bothers me that some of the leading political commentators are crying poor this way. It really bothers me that Jimmy Dore is constantly talking about money in this same way, in a really vague and obfuscatory way, saying like, oh, well, you don't know how much money I make. I don't make nearly as much money as those lead anchors at CNN and NBC and these other stations. It's not really the question, Jimmy. Jimmy Dore is asking for donations. He's a donation-driven political commentator. And he doesn't report how much money he makes on the internet, neither from YouTube nor from Patreon. Both are concealed, right? Now, I have periodically mentioned how much money I make. It's so little that it's never worth talking about. My plan is, unlike Jimmy Dore, because I want to talk about this, and I want to also engage Jimmy Dore himself and other YouTubers in a discussion about this. My plan is to post a financial report every 2 months on my blog telling you exactly how much money I make and telling my ex-wife exactly how much money I make out of YouTube. Guess what, guys? It's not hard. Right now, I just clicked the last 30 days. The total earnings I have from YouTube, $153.56. You get it to the penny, okay? And that'll be accurate up to about the last 3 days. There's a little bit of inaccuracy or estimation for the most recent 3 days, so it's more accurate if you talk about the past and not the most recent 30 days, but whatever. In my channel's case, what, is it maybe inaccurate by 1%? Not really worth talking about with such a small amount of money. But sure, it could end up being a rounding error, higher or lower than that. Anybody can know these things, all right? Now, this is partly interesting in and of itself, thus I've taken 3 minutes to talk about it. And now we're moving on to the main topic of the video, which is the extent to which Bonny Rebecca is really being dishonest and is, in effect, concern trolling. She is, in effect, being a concern troll within the vegan movement, which is an interesting concept we didn't even have before the internet. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong here, I do not think any language on earth had a term for concern trolling before the internet. Now we have this term in English. It blows my mind. I wonder, how do you say this in Chinese? How do you say this in any other language on earth? It's a really interesting concept. Concern trolling has a very precise and specific meaning. Okay? Compassion is irrelevant. Okay? If someone is wrong and you're discussing the ways in which they're right and wrong, compassion is irrelevant. If someone is incorrect and you're discussing the ways in which they are factually incorrect, then compassion is irrelevant. We can all preach compassion, right? Sun up to sunset, okay? Then you talk to someone who has a sincere misconception, all right? And the misconception could run either way. I knew in person a woman, she's the same age as me. I was going to say a young woman, but I'm not young anymore. We didn't date, but we kind of started started up a romance as if we were going to go on a date, and then we ended up not going on a first date. And she had an allergy to rubber in food, like rubber in green vegetables. I had never heard of this before. Obviously, it's a really rare allergy. And at first, I was just really surprised. I was like, well, look, I have read about that, but I thought incredibly few foods in the human diet, like foods that are produced on a farm, actually contain like latex rubber this way. And you do a few Google searches. And again, for me, English is my first language, so there's a lot available on the internet in English. If your first language is Laotian or something, like, you really have to think. If your first language, maybe, it really is one of the huge advantages of English is that there's a ton of scientific evidence available in your first language on the internet. This woman, her first language was Chinese. She spoke English fluently, but for her to read like peer-reviewed science in English, very hard to do. I started looking around. It turned out this was a fascinating health problem, and I'm mentioning it here because it exists within veganism. Someone could have really, really serious food allergies reacting to, for example, avocados. Avocados contain this trace amount of latex, of rubber, right? There are all kinds of other green vegetables and fruits. I don't know if fruit is the right word. There are all kinds of plants that contain varying amounts of rubber. This is a food allergy that's out there. It can exist within the vegan diet. Now, you have someone telling you and justifying killing and eating animals and promoting a non-vegan meat-eating diet, right? Specifically fish and eggs. Saying, this is quoting Bonnie Rebecca's statement in text, quote, "For Tim, eating spinach and sweet potato were making him worse by the day." Okay? It doesn't matter if I have compassion or not, right? Whatever the problem was, let's just pretend we can treat this as objectively, factually true. Okay? If he has a health problem that makes it impossible for him to eat spinach and sweet potatoes, or a problem where when he eats those food, he's having some kind of egregious reaction to it, I can't say that's impossible. Because again, even just this one example of being allergic to trace amounts of rubber in food, I met one person who had that condition, okay? I can't say that's impossible, that you're having this reaction to spinach and sweet potatoes. You know what I can say is impossible? It's impossible that you are going to cure it by killing animals and eating the flesh of their body. It's impossible that you're going to cure it by making excuses for killing animals and eating the flesh of their body on the internet and getting over 800,000 views and making money out of that and lying to the public about how much money you're making out of it. You see the problem here? You see why compassion starts to be irrelevant? I do have compassion. I can sympathize. I had another girlfriend. This one was actually my girlfriend. I had another girlfriend, and she had a really, really rare allergy to plaster. Okay, I've never met anyone since who had this allergy. I've never heard of it before. And normally, you get exposed to plaster as dust, plaster dust, right? I think most people who have this allergy would never even notice it. You have to live in a circumstance, right? If you have an allergy like that, and then you live in somewhere where you're exposed to plaster, I can imagine you think it's the food or something. You think, oh, it's because I'm eating spinach and sweet potatoes. You're not really thinking scientifically. So yeah, maybe you do have some kind of rare food allergy. Maybe you have some completely unrelated health problem. I don't know. But what I do know is that the case you have made here for going back to eating fish and eggs, and people, you already know this, fish are animals. Fish have brains and eyes and a heart. They have a mind and memory and the ability to feel pain and remember the past and all the rest of it. Some fish are smarter than some people. I hope watching this video that you're more intelligent than the majority of fish out there, but they have cognitive capacity too. All of the ecological arguments are still there with fish, just as much as they are with cows, etc., etc. And eating eggs, there's no excuse for them, and it's just ridiculous. An egg is an organ of a chicken's body. You're still raising chickens in captivity. They're living in a hutch just to die. We've done videos talking about all this stuff in the past. I don't think it's worth talking about again. Bonnie Rebecca claims her father had rheumatoid arthritis, a form of arthritis, okay? And she was concerned, not that she had a test indication saying this, she was concerned that she might develop arthritis. Okay, that's a concern. That's a concern. But guess what you're doing here? You're concern trolling. You're using it in a completely phony and insincere way to derail the conversation and indeed, to some extent, to derail the vegan movement in your tiny way, right? I just did a Google right now. I did a Google search just for arthritis, veganism, nothing else. And just look at the first 6 results you get. They're in-depth discussions of the extent to which veganism can help you cope with the symptoms of arthritis. Right? I've heard about that for years. I am not going to tell you veganism would cure arthritis. I don't think any of those articles claim another. But those articles are not claiming, oh, if you have arthritis, you should go back to eating meat. You should go back to eating fish and eggs. Right? So, I mean, the concern is legitimate. Oh, you're concerned about arthritis. Well, I look around at arthritis and vegan diet, and guess what kind of connection I see between those themes. But you're using this instead to justify something that's immoral, irrational, and really scientifically wrong. Okay? And she closes. I'm just reading a selection of the text here from what Bonnie Rebecca stated on her Instagram. She says, once I had a specialist tell me this is very real and I'm putting myself in a dangerous situation, it all sunk in. I don't see how it could ever be considered unethical of me to put my health first. That's exactly the conversation we're having, isn't it?